after 21st. So you can refer to these recordings as well after the session's end. Um, and yes, so we'll start now. Yesterday we saw some basic setting up of an Express.js server. We understood what were routes in an Express.js server and how we could modularize our Express.js apps to handle specific routes as required. We also installed NodeMon, which was able to watch for changes in our files and restart the server. We also installed something called Express Generator, which is an official utility from Express.js themselves, which allows us to set up a very basic template for our application. And as mentioned yesterday, for the templating as such, which I'll go through a little today, uh, we'll be using EJS, which is EJS templating, which basically allows us to use a variable sort of in HTML code. Now, today we'll be, let me just share my screen. Today we'll be doing two important things, which is, just a moment. Today we'll be doing two important things. The first one is we'll be connecting our app with MongoDB, which we had created day before yesterday. If you don't have it, it's very simple to create actually. I hope my screen is visible, and it is something which we created day before yesterday. And once we have that ready, we have access to a database with which we can actually communicate with our server. So do that first. So to do that, we'll start off. So this template is untouched from yesterday. It is the very basic one generated with Express.js. Now, before we go into connecting our database with MongoDB, I'd like to do some things like we'll just try to first understand what was this res.render that we were trying to use, which was present in our index.js file inside of the routes folder, which we created. So here we saw we were usually using something like this res.send for any of our routes. But yesterday in our index.js file, which was created by Express.js, we saw something like res.render. Now, what is this res.render? You might also see that with this we have this views folder created. Now, what is this views folder? In this views folder, basically we have this file called index.ejs, and when we are going on this slash URL, you would see that there is this slash already mentioned in our index.js router. And if I just open up a browser here and start our server, what we'll see is when we go to the root URL or the slash endpoint for our server, I'll just write nodemon as yesterday and our server will start. And so what will happen is when we go to our localhost 3000, we see this Express and welcome to Express. Now, how was this happening? We saw yesterday that our index.js router was configured for the slash endpoint. So everything inside of the index.js router will come after the slash. So because in our router itself, there we are only referring to the root, and the index.router also refers to the root. So this essentially becomes only slash for our URL. Now what happens is you would see that there is this res.render, and let's just go and check what is inside our index.ejs file. Now, as I said, you need to know a very little bit of HTML for this. Um, so you can see here that apart from the head, let's just ignore it for now. In our body, or we might we also be able to delete it for now, and also this. Okay, this is what we'll do, and we'll save, and I guess reloading will change the style. Okay, no problem. So I tried. So what we see here is this variable that is mentioned, what which you don't usually see in HTML usually. So what this is basically, as I mentioned, we with EJS templating we are allowed to use variables inside of HTML. So even though this is some funny looking .ejs file, it is essentially just similar to a .html file, um, which you usually are used to. So in our index.ejs file, we have this express written, and this res.render takes two arguments. The first one is the page which we are going to load when we go to the slash endpoint. That is, we are going to load the index view, uh, and index view, which is the index.ejs file inside of views, and with a second argument which is used to supply data to that page from the server. Now this becomes very important. This is because in any of our servers or any of our applications that we use, we are often, as I mentioned, we are often communicating by sending a get request and getting some homepage in return. Now, when we are getting that homepage in return, how does the server know that it is you who is asking for that web page? And when you go to youtube.com, how does YouTube already know that it is you, for example, who is loading the page? And why does my YouTube page look different to yours? It is because of the same reason. There are some variables configured for YouTube in their backend, that when I log into their server or when I open youtube.com, my homepage looks completely different than what your YouTube homepage would look like. So this is what we have right now.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Sorry to disturb. Is it possible that we can zoom a bit?
Uh, okay, sure. Uh, is this fine?
Nandan Bhatt had a problem with the screen. If you can confirm it in the chat, please. Is it fine now? Yes, it is better.
Okay,
Go ahead.
better. Okay, okay. Thank you. Thanks. Am I audible? Okay, okay, I'll go ahead. So yes, in this, let me make the screen. I think we are zoomed in a bit too much. Is this fine? I think we were working with this Zoom till yesterday. Uh, can someone confirm in chat? Is this readable? Okay, okay. So when we did this, and we are basically supplying two arguments. The second one looks something like an object, or this JSON thing that we are been talking about. This JSON structure is the same structure that is used in package.json, where we have this name thing, and the name attribute has some value. A similar way, our variables or our object, when sending to our index.ejs file, is configured. So for yourself, try changing this to something else. For example, let's try changing this to our bootcamp. For example, I'll just write this and I'll save, and we'll reload this page. And if we do so, we'll see that our server was not reloaded yet. I think it should work now. Yes, okay. So it says our bootcamp now, and instead of saying express everywhere, it is saying our bootcamp, and we just changed the string or string value for a title in the server, but it was reflected in what was presented to the user. This is happening through our EJS files. Now, how EJS is doing it right here is we are creating some variable called title. Sorry, there is a grasshopper. Okay. Uh, so our we have this title in our variable, and if you go to your index.ejs file, you'll find that we have this funny looking syntax here, and inside of it we have written title. Now this syntax is what EJS is using to actually process our variable. Because if you try to go here and remove these remove this sort of angled bracket percentage equal sign and the percentage angle brackets closing sign, and try to reload it again with just title written, you'll see that we are only presented with title. It is because now EJS is not able to understand if this thing in HTML is actually a variable or not. So instead, EJS uses this notation for making the browser or making the EJS file identify that, okay, this is some variable and this needs to be replaced with the value that was supplied from the server. That is what title is here for. And again, if we reload, our variable that was supplied from the server is shown here. Now let's try to do something more. Let's now try to connect with our MongoDB database today. And let's try to show some value from our MongoDB database. So it will give us some satisfaction that, okay, we are now able to receive that some value that we had from the database that we had created some 2 days ago. So to do this, we'll do one thing. Go to your index.js file, which is our router, and we'll start writing out. And for now, let's just close our server if not required, because we'll be installing some more packages now. And let's do one thing. Now we will go to our index.js file and write some very specific things. And what this will be is, first we'll install a package called connect mongo, which will allow us to connect with our MongoDB database. It is done through writing npm install connect -mongo. This is what we will be using to install this connect mongo package for our file specifically. And remember always that this terminal where we are installing all these files is the root of your folder that we had created. Your folder might be named something else. I am using Express Bootcamp as my folder name. It will be your project name. So VS Code always opens the terminal in the root folder for you. So it says some vulnerabilities are found. We can ignore this for now, although we shouldn't, but we'll ignore this for now. Our package has been installed. Now what we'll do is, in our router, in our index router, we'll initialize our MongoDB client. And how do we do this? We will write var mongo client is equal to require. And as I mentioned, from require, we were requiring some external code into our file, the same way require express is written. And we'll just write MongoDB dot and Mongo client. This is what will be our variable, which our object, which we will be using for connecting with our server. Now in this, we'll do one more thing. What we will do is, in our res.get, instead of just writing this instead of just presenting the index file, before that we will write some more lines. We will create now what something what is called a client. And how do we create that? We will write something like where client is equal to await mongo client, and mongo client dot connect, and here will be our URL for our connection. And if you don't understand this await for now, and this gives us a red error, for now just write async here besides the function in our router, and the error will go away for now. We'll get to what is async await a little late, but for now just write it so that our error goes away and we can get a working application with us. Now that our client is set up, we need to actually connect to some URL, some Mongo, some database URL. And how are we going to do that? I'll present my entire screen for now. Okay, I'm seeing this. Cancel that issue. It's called Mongo. Sorry, Connect Mongo. Connect Mongo. Just do npm install connect Mongo for now. And now I'll just present my entire screen, and we'll go to our MongoDB database now. And in our MongoDB database, actually, what we saw was, I'll just share this. Here in our MongoDB database, in our if you have made up your ID, set up your cluster that we did, and here now we will go and click on connect. Clicking on connect gives us these several options to do so. For now, just click on this compass thing, and here just say I have MongoDB installed, and this string of connecting to a MongoDB is required. Now this again contains, we will not decode the URL too much, but this includes your cluster name called cluster 0 or something else if you have named it. We'll just click on copy here, right? And in our file, coming back to our VS Code file, just give me a moment. Okay, coming back to our VS Code file, we will be using this this very variable. So just okay, I think we'll not switch screens now. Is it visible? Okay. Now we'll go into our index.js file, and here we'll directly copy paste this URL inside of this connect uh, connect function. And here it prompts us to write a password, so we'll change this, we'll remove this string and just write test for now, because this was the MongoDB user which I had created with this very username and this password with the password test, and the username was this. So yours might look completely different, but we'll and you would just copy paste and replace your password there. Now we'll do one more thing. uh, we will now actually, and as mentioned, MongoDB cluster itself can contain some database, so let's now go and do that. And how we will do that is go here, uh, click on database here on the left panel, click on your cluster name so that we go into the cluster, click on connections here, collections here, and once it opens up, it will prompt us to load some sample data or add our own data into the database. Let's just click add my own data here. and it prompts us to create some database. And let's just say now that our database name is also test, or rather we'll call it a much better name called MyDB. MyDB is our database, and for the collection name, let's just call it test. I'll tell you what are collections inside of a database, but give it some time, and our first database inside of MongoDB has been created actually. Um and our collection called test also has been created. Now, what is a collection inside of a database? It is essentially different groups of data present inside of one database. So for example, if this is our whole application database, then it might contain one collection called users, which stores all informations about all users in our database. And in one collection, you can have multiple rows. So imagine if there was a YouTube database for your own account. So what would it have? It would have one collection for all the playlists. It would have one collection for all the videos. It would have one collection for all your likes. It will also and much more, right? So in the same way, the collection contains collections are supposed to contain the rows for many different types of things. For example, if you are subscribed to 12 channels on YouTube, then there might be a subscriptions collection for your account, and 12 rows would be present in that data saying that you are subscribed to 12 channels. Now here, um, because we have created a database and a collection named test, let's try to read from this collection. Currently there is no data. As you can see, it says query results 0, which means there is no data to actually query. We'll just go into our router again and write var db is equal to client dot db, and inside we'll mention the database name, which was MyDB, and close it. And once that is done, we'll go to the next line and write var collection is equal to db dot collection test. Right, that now it gives us the opportunity to read from a collection now. And now what we'll do is we'll create some data in our collection actually to be able to query through it. Now here, inside of our collection, just clicking on a test, click insert document, and insert document presents to us this JSON data, this JSON data that we can enter into our collection. And what we will write here is, for example, say name Kunal, and let's just write one thing. For example, food and ice cream, maybe, I don't know. So let's just write this here and click insert. It takes some time, and our first piece of data has been inserted into our database. But we have created this data manually, and we'll try to read from our database now. And how will we do that is let's come here and say var document, which declares variable as a document, and we'll say equal to collection dot find one document. And again, this is a uh, this is again a function, and inside of it we'll create these braces and say name colon Kunal. I think this is what we wrote. Okay, so this is what we wrote, and this is one document which MongoDB will try to find in our collection called MyDB test MyDB, and inside of it test. Now if we run it for now, it will do nothing because we are not printing out anything. Before that, be sure to write await here as well. Again, as I said, we'll get into async and await later, but just make sure that it says var db is equal to await client dot database. Basically, await would mean that you are allowing your functions to actually wait for the client. So uh, this is what we would be doing. Okay, not here, not here. Uh, we'll just leave it here for now, and let's try to console.log. So the await was basically on the top. I misread that, and we are basically awaiting for our Mongo client to connect with the database. And once that is done, let's try to console.log here. Let's just try to write console.log document this whole thing. So if we are able to find something in our a row in our collection which matches name Kunal, uh, we will be returned that document. And in MongoDB, rows are called documents. So we will again proceed with that naming. So in our collection, we will find the row with name Kunal, that is document with name Kunal, and be returning it. Let's try to run this now. We will do a CLS and just write nodemon here, and our server starts. Let's just try reloading our application on the root URL. Okay, and it says promise pending. I think this should be fixed with an await here. And let's try running it again. Okay, this works. So what you have here is, in our console itself, if this is visible, we are returned with the document saying name Kunal and food ice cream. Now pay a little attention to what we are being returned. We are being returned something with something called an object in JavaScript, and which has a key and a value pair, as we have already seen before. So the key, we are returned an object which has three keys and three values corresponding to each of the keys. We have an ID which has something called an object ID, which is a unique identifier of that row. We have something called name, which has the value Kunal, and we have something called food, which has the value ice cream. And why is this happening is because we created this this whole row by ourselves. And if you were to create another document and change the name of this, then we would be able to return that row as well. So for now, what we'll do is, let's just return this document name, and instead of putting some title here for ourselves, let us do one thing. Let us just say document, and in the document, let us refer to name dot name. So what it will do is, in the document object, it will look for the key name, like here in our console what the document was logged as, and this will return the value for that particular key. Now let's try running it again, and hopefully if it works without errors. For now, we will be seeing our own name on our web page. Now what essentially we have done here is, we have created a database, right? We have created a server, and we are the client. Now what is happening is, us as the client is sending a request to the server. The server is connecting with the database and finding one very particular value uh, for ourselves, and displaying the value of whatever is given in that database. And what this happens to be is, uh, this value called name Kunal, it is finding that and is returning that name for us. Now let's do one thing. If we change our key here, and let's say instead of displaying document.name from our collection, we'll say document.food, and let's save it and try reloading our web page again. And what we will see is it starts displaying the food item, which should be ice cream here. It like I hope your servers run much faster. It's because I'm connected at so many places using my internet. So once we reload this again, I think yes, it shows ice cream. So the messages have no meaning right now. What I want to show you is that the title that is sent from here to the index.ejs page is processing this variable, and here the variable that we are getting is coming from our document itself. So now let's do one more thing. Now we are getting the hang of it, right? We have some value set in our database and it is being returned to our index.ejs page. So instead of food here, let's change it to something else. Let's uh, call it something like uh, chocolates. Chocolates, right? Let's just say chocolates and click update here in our MongoDB database. And now we have changed it to chocolates. So now coming back here, we'll not change anything in our server, right? We haven't touched our server yet. We haven't changed a single line of code. Let's just reload this page once again, and it automatically gets changed to chocolates. And why is that happening? It is because we are changing the values in our database itself. So when we are doing that in our database, our values in the front end are also changing along with that. So it now says chocolates. And this is how we are going to proceed and be supplying or these variables and values to our front end. Now obviously this find one function will is very manually finding this one user or one data which has the name Kunal. Yours might look a lot different, but this is how we are going to proceed. And now let's just do one last thing. Instead of just writing title, let's give two values here. Let's just say subtitle, right? Let's just call it subtitle. And instead we'll write something called document dot subtitle here. Now this will most probably give us an error when we go to reload the page, is because subtitle doesn't exist in our database. So whenever our MongoDB, and we'll reload it, and most probably we'll be either seeing a blank screen or something. Okay, so basically our subtitle isn't present, and if we try to load our subtitle here, and let's just come in here and remove all of this, the second line, and just call this subtitle and save it. And now if we try to reload it, we will have it completely blank, because as such we don't have anything called a subtitle in our document. So we have nothing to display. So let's just do one thing. Let's go to our database and click on this pencil icon, which is updating our database. Click on this plus icon, add field after food. Let's just say something like title, and give it our and have anything written, welcome to my web page, and click this plus again, and select obviously add field after, and click here and say, let's say subtitle, and in the subtitle let's just put any random message saying this is my amazing web page, and just let's just click update. Now when we reload our front page, we will be receiving more information basically in our console, which says name Kunal, food chocolates, subtitle is this, and the title is this, welcome to my web page. Okay, we have a typo there, but okay, let's ignore it for now. Now instead of mentioning this food, let's just say title, because now we have a proper title which we can fetch, and this subtitle also. Now let's just save our file. Our server will reload because of nodemon, and let's just click refresh or reload here again. And once we do that, we have our title displayed from MongoDB, and we also have our subtitle displayed from our MongoDB document again. So this is how we actually go through, edit our documents and add more information into our documents, which we will start doing programmatically um from tomorrow, not today. So this is what we'll be going forward with. Now we know how to send information to HTML pages using our res.render, supplying some variables. We now know a very big thing, which is connecting to databases, uh, and going to a collection, querying the collection for a certain document. Querying is basically searching for the document, for searching for the collection for a very specific value, returning that value as a document, and using values from that document, for example the object that we received, into our web page. So the chain becomes: the client sends a request to the server, the server sends a request to the database returns the values to us, the server then returns those values along with the data and the web page that it has created to us. So it starts to look like a more amazing chain that if you are with me, you will uh, uh, see, because now we have this three layer sort of requests that are going on: the client and the server and the database. So I think that is what we'll be doing for now regarding this EJS templating and the render. And let's just try to do one final thing with authentication. Now, the authentication part will be sort of very rapid for now, but please bear with me. It will take 5 or 10 minutes to set up from now, so we might go a little bit over our prescribed time by 5 minutes at max. So what we will do is, and now again close our server for now. We already have established our connection with our server, and we also know how to query from there. And now let's type in CLS and clear everything. And our database is not needed that much right now, so let me just stop presenting it, and let me just go to, okay, is my screen visible now? Somebody please give a thumbs up if it's visible. Okay, thank you. So uh, okay, now we'll start going over our authentication, and authentication is not going to be very simple for now, but let's just do it here. So what we are going to do is, come to our main app.js file for now. Come to our main app.js file, and we'll write a little bit of code. Please bear with me for now, and just try to follow along. If not, I'll try to provide the code. So in our app.js file, on the top, mention something, and let's write const, or var for that matter. Let's just write Mongo store is equal to require connect Mongo, the package which we installed previously. Now below that, we will write one more thing, which is, we will require another package called .env, and I'll tell you why is that happening, or let's just drop it for now. Let's not make it more complicated, and let's just write this Mongo store let's just create this variable, and let's come down a little, and we will be using now something which is called Passport.js. And for again requiring passport, we will write something called require passport, where passport is equal to require passport. uh, just a moment. Okay, this, and we will also be now creating one more uh, variable, and for storing our authentication in sessions. Now wait for a moment before you have some doubts, and we'll just say express session, require express session here. And now what is this going to do? Mongo store will allow storing our authentication in our MongoDB database. Passport.js is the library, or the package which is going to essentially allow us for logging in the first place. And also the sessions variable is going to allow storing our session or sessions, whatever, is going to allow our user to be stored in a session. And what is a session? Basically, whenever you log into a website, for example, and don't log into your ID for many days, when you revisit that website, most probably you often get logged out of your account, or logged out of your ID. This is because your session expires, and one user session depends on how the browser looks at it, how the website looks at it. But one user session is basically used to identify that, okay, for some X amount of time, this particular user was using our website. So that is something called session. Now we'll set up something, another thing, which is a session object, which will allow us to define what variables we are actually going to store in our session, what information we are going to store from our user. And now how are we going to do that? Is come down a little and write where session object is equal to session, because we wrote that, defined that above using our require parameter. And we have to name this, and let's just name it something like session for now. And we'll define some more parameters here, which just bear with me for now. Uh, I'm just going to copy paste some code right here and try to explain it to you how that is happening. So we'll create these other keys. So we'll create this something called the secret, and which the secret would basically mean there is some password to the session that is not accessible by any third party. So basically it prevents it. It is sort of a cyber security feature for your session. This resave and rolling, just ignore it for now, and just write it as it is. Resave true, rolling true is would mean that your session refreshes every time you reload the website. um, and just write save uninitialized false. This would basically mean that if there is nobody logging into the session, then your session cannot be created. Basically, that is what this would mean. And now store is going to be something called mongo store.create. This would basically mean that your session is also going to be stored in the database, and instead of the mongo url here, what we will be using is our mongodb server connection string here, right here. And the place where all these sessions would be stored is called a collection called sessions in our MongoDB database. And here let's and there is something called a cookie. So all of this is now, and I specifically mentioned it as homework yesterday. The cookie was going to be stored. All this session data is basically going to be stored in a cookie, which basically stores your user information inside of one thing, which is called a cookie, and it stays on your browser. And in this case, it is also going to stay in the database. And once that is done, we are going to write a few more things. Just bear with me for some time. uh, we are going to write app.use session object. We are also going to write app.use passport dot authentication session. Now this the three lines that I'm about to write is very library specific, so just copy it for now and don't pay much attention to what individually each of these is doing. And we'll just say one more thing called passport dot initialize. And the last thing that we are going to write is app.use passport.session. That's all. This is what we are going to write from our end here. And we'll write a few more things, or I think we'll have to close it at this point and we can continue tomorrow. We'll just write two more things here, which might seem a little complicated for now. But this is basically going with what is required for the Passport.js library to have our sessions set up for the user. So we are going to write another function which is called serialize user. What this will do is when our authentication is complete, that is, as I mentioned in the email also, we are going with a Google authentication, which is something very common that we see nowadays. And what Google will do is when we authenticate or we click login with Google, the information supplied to us would be the name of the user, the email ID of the user, and the photo of the user. So serialize user is a function which Passport.js uses. Now again, this is not something which is very something you can say which is JavaScript specific. This is something which is the package specific or the library specific things in Passport, for example. And this serialize user will do what? When it gets some data from a successful authentication, it will store the name, email, and photo in the cookie that we had created previously. This is what it will do. And along with the serialize user, there is also something called a deserialize user function that we are going to have. And this is what our final setup for app.js is going to be for setting up our authentication. To just go over this, and tomorrow we'll actually continue with creating routes for logging in, because you would see all these websites contain this /login route, where if you go to /login, then some logic executes and then you are able to log into the website. So we will be writing that specific logic tomorrow. Today I have just we'll stop just right here, and I'll try to provide this code using GitHub, or right now if I just copy paste it right now, if that works. So we have set up our base for Passport.js, which is an authentication library, to create cookies whenever some successful authentication happens. And we have also allowed Passport.js to deserialize the user, which is removing the user whenever we log out a successfully authenticated user. So I think we'll stop here for now, and we'll continue this authentication thing tomorrow. And don't worry if this seems complex for now. We'll go over it again tomorrow when we are specifically writing our login routes. The main thing that I want you to understand for today is how did we connect to our MongoDB client. and how we were able to fetch some values from our collection in our database and a document in the collection, and how we were able to return it to our index page, index.ejs page, and display it. Finally, for now, I only want you to understand is that whenever a successful Google authentication is happening, we are storing the cookie for the user, which I told to read yesterday. If you have not, then just you can also take your time today and read a little bit about cookies. And whenever some successful authentication will happen by clicking on login with Google, our application is going to receive information about the user, and we are again going to store it in our MongoDB database. That will happen tomorrow, and we'll go over this again. The cookie will have more information on when it expires, like given here. This is actually some information about how long the user is going to be logged in before he or she is logged out automatically. So we'll go over this again tomorrow. I just want you to understand, as I previously said, that whenever a successful authentication is happening, we are storing some user information into something which is called cookies, and that cookies are going to be stored on the client's machine and sent to our server itself, so that we can do further processing about the user and get more information on the name, email, and photo, for example, for the user. So that is where we will stop today. If you have doubts, we will bring it up. Please bring it up in the Q&A section if we have any. And if not, I'll try to provide some the code to you today if that is required. And yes, if you have any doubts on this or anything else, please ask. Uh, if we don't, then we can actually close this session here. And as okay, Nandan Bhatt, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Kunal. Just wanted to know this authentication basically is like it maintains sort of session records, is what you're saying, and
Yes.
well, kind of, and what does Passport do again? I mean, where does that feature again?
Okay. So passport, the use of passport here is that um, you could actually implement all of this without passport itself, but the library will basically give you more an interface to work with, is what we are trying to achieve. So what internally passport will do is, whenever you get some information from the user, we get a call back to our server. The server will use that information to store the user's information into each of the requests of the application, and each request that the application send is going to then become authenticated automatically because of what passport does in the backend. So whenever there is a successful authentication, each request that the user sends to the server can determine if the user is authenticated or not, and that is a very important feature that passport will automatically implement for us. Not just getting and receiving information about the user, but making all of our requests authenticated, so we know that okay, this is a secured user. That is what passport will allow us to do throughout our server, and we won't have to think about it ever again, that okay, if a certain user is logged in or not, and those sort of things passport will automatically handle for us. I hope I answered that.
Okay.
Sunay Lahiri.
Hello. Yes.
Yes.
Uh, I was asking that is session object temporary? Means is it expired after the logout?
Okay, great question. Actually, I get to explain this max age that we have mentioned here. This is some okay, not like this. This is a millisecond value. This is all time in computers is basically stored in milliseconds. So this max age parameter that we mention here, right, is exactly what you are saying. So the cookies do expire actually. When somebody logs in, the server actually looks at the time at when the cookie was created and what is the current time, and actually expires the session. So that is exactly what is happening here. You can we set some time, for example, say a day or 7 days or 1 month. If the user doesn't log in to our server in that particular time, our user session expires and we log the user out. And when in very sensitive applications, this can also be 30 seconds. So no, sorry, not 30 seconds, 30 minutes or an hour or so, so that the user logs into our application, continues using our application, and once he or she doesn't log out, basically, even without logging out, you only get 30 minutes more. If you don't use the application for 30 minutes more, you get automatically logged out on your next refresh of the web page. That is what happens when you try logging in again or try performing another request. Your request becomes unauthenticated after that specific 1 day or 30 minutes or 1 hour or a 7 day timer. So I think that is what you're asking, right?
Yes, and can we edit this time according to our preference?
Yes, exactly. We can. So see here, all time is stored in milliseconds. So if I'm saying this correctly, 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds, right? So if we set the max age as just 1,000, we would mean that every 1 second the cookie expires here in this very setup. And these are uh, uh, properties defined in Express session as defined before. So max age in the cookie object would mean that in every 1 second it expires. But again, we don't want 1 second, only 1 second for the cookie to expire. So we would say, okay, 1 second into 60, which makes it 1 minute. But again, we don't want to expire it in 1 minute. We can now again multiply it by 60 and say, okay, not 1 minute, let's just make it 1 hour. But again, 1 hour is also depending on our application, 1 hour might look not appropriate. So we can again apply multiply that by 24, so it becomes 24 hours. That is 1 day for the cookie to expire, and so on. Like if you want, after this becomes this 1,000 into 60 into 60 into 24 milliseconds becomes 1 day. And then you can again apply it, multiply it by 7 to say 7 days, or 30 to say 1 month, or multiply it whatever. Like you can then set it sorry, you can set a custom value according to your needs. That is what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. We also just have two more questions left. I think there are no questions in the Q&A today. So this is how you use JS variables in HTML. Yes, EJS templates help you do that. Okay, okay. So you, Shreya already answered. Okay, great. So Ketan, yes, what is this index.ejs about? Remember when we were using this um, index.js file, where instead of yes, till yesterday we were just using res.send, which was able to send text messages back to the user, and it was very simple. But our application will not just send text messages always. We actually need to return an HTML page to the user. And how does that happen? Is by using res.render. And in res.render, we actually need this EJS templating, which we mentioned previously. When we used Express generator, we mentioned our view or our template is going to be EJS. There are other templating engines, but let's just focus on EJS for now. And that index.ejs page possesses the ability to store or display specific variables that are sent from the server. So this title variable was sent from the server, and this cannot happen with a normal HTML file. This has to happen with an EJS file, is because HTML files by default don't have that capability. Index.ejs files look exactly like your HTML files, but they also possess the ability to have this notation where you can use variables from the server. So index.ejs file is our final HTML file that is displayed to the user. When we ran our server, we saw that we displayed some title and we displayed some subtitle. So that is how it happened. We used EJS instead of plain HTML to display all of our variables for the user. So that is what index.ejs is about. I hope you understand. This is basically views which are presented, and because we are on the topic and whoever is here right now, I would also want you right now or by tomorrow to study a little bit about model view architecture or MVC. It is a very common thing used across languages. Because this is what is happening. Our server sends some data using a data model, using something called controllers, these routes, and our view, which is our index.ejs file, renders or displays that information into our EJS file to the user. So this is something which is called an MVC architecture, or model view controller architecture. And I'll also mention this in the email now because you asked that. And this is what we are going to go ahead with. So for tomorrow, again, if you can just read, I'll give you more time. We can read about, please read about this model view controller, and also read about cookies and how sessions are stored. What is a session in web development? So that will help understand the Passport.js implementation tomorrow. And from tomorrow, we are actually going to start with creating data programmatically in MongoDB and all of that. So and we're also going to start with a little bit of product creation with basic variables, or programmatically tomorrow for our product listing website, which is going to somewhat look like India Mart, if you already don't know that. So like something similar to that is what we are going to build. So I hope that is fine. I'll mention all of this in an email to be sent tomorrow morning about all the tasks for tomorrow. I hope you also have set up the Google Cloud accounts. And if you have any problem, I'll also mention how to solve that, because we will be using our Google client, Google Cloud, some keys from our Google Cloud account tomorrow in authentication. So that's all. That's all for today. Thank you all.
Kunal,
Yes, Sunil.
yes, do we have to subscribe to some newsletter for the email?
No, I'm sending the email manually. Are you not receiving it?
Which club?
No, just check your student ID. You must be receiving it from my name. You must be receiving that email from my name. If not, I'll look into that specifically. Just check your student email. You must be receiving it.
Sundarban House?
No, like I think today's email I sent from my own side, from my own name. Sundarban's secretary sent some mails yesterday and day before yesterday, and for today I sent the emails myself. So it should be from Kunal Chaturvedi. If you please check once your
Okay,
student
I'll
ID.
check. Okay, I'll
Great.
check.
Great, please. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Tulika, for moderating again. And we'll meet tomorrow. And let's
Just one thing.
Yes.
Hello. That npx create React app also does it prevents you from rebooting your server again and again, right? Like does the same thing like what a node-mon does, right? It's the same thing with the npx express. What was it you
Generator.
said yesterday? Yeah. So it basically does the same thing, right?
Yes, it does the same thing.
I mean, other than other.
Yes,
Go on, go on, go on.
yes, it is doing the same thing. So npx express generator is npx create react app, which like let me make it clear, we are not going to go into react because 7 days
Yeah.
is actually not enough. So
Correct.
npx create react app installs some packages or dependencies into your node app by default, which when you then again go and do some npm install, it will automatically do that for you. But when we are just working with Express.js, then we need something like a Express nodemon to actually watch for changes in our files and refresh it. So I'm maybe sure or like something. It is literally just one mirror of the same thing or some same package or some literal same implementation, which just watches for changes in your React file and reloads the server again and again whenever
Yeah.
you make some change. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah. I was just confirming that it has the same one of the properties as the node one basically, right? Yeah.
Yes, it has the same properties as your React app.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you again. We'll meet again tomorrow. It's going to be the same meeting link every day from 7 to 8 p.m. Uh, for today's tasks, I'll send an email again tomorrow morning or by tomorrow afternoon. Please check your student emails by which you registered, and we'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you.